but we'll start. Vamos a grabar y buenas tardes. No puedo decirles buenas noches. Es el cambio poco a poco con la hora del puesto del sol. Our sunset time is changing little by little. So now I can say to you, buenas tardes instead of buenas noches. Bien, ok. Vamos a conversar, vamos a practicar un poquito de todo. Hoy es un poquito de todo. Today is a little bit of everything. I was going to start with a word game, but I decided that there were so many things to talk about that maybe we're going to skip the word game for this week and just kind of look at some other things. Because actually some of what we're going to do tonight will be a word game of sorts. Although not a board game, but talking about all things of what kind of words do we use to express these ideas and how do they change and maybe how can we use them. So we're going to dive into that. And anytime you have questions, sí, díganme, ¿no? Bueno, quiero empezar con momentito. Voy a mostrarles solamente la foto, ¿sí? Vamos a empezar con las ideas de ese vídeo de Ensenada, que está muy cerca de nuestro estado, ¿no? Ensenada. Y el vídeo de Ensenada. Lo que me gustó más, pues, además de la comida, porque siempre me encanta ver los platos que tienen en esos vídeos de la comida especial, las especialidades. Pero lo que me encantó muchísimo era la idea de remar en kayak cerca de Ensenada, ¿sí? Me gustaría remar en kayak. Hace como 5 años que remé en kayak. Y me encantan esos viajes en kayak en los ríos, especialmente en el río Colorado, pero cualquier río no importa tanto, ¿no? ¿Y qué les gustó de Ensenada, del video de Ensenada? No me importó la casa con la casa gótica al principio, no, pero otras cosas sí. ¿Qué les gustó? What did you particularly like out of there? ¿Qué notaron? What did you notice? ¿Qué notaron de interés? Algo de interés.
Los edificios, buildings, edificios.
Los edificios, bien, sí. Tenían ese edificio al principio con demonios y todo. Qué raro que era una casa. It was a house.
I don't know, but it was.
Todavía es casa, no sé. Muy raro. Ok. ¿Qué más notaron? Oh, perdón, Miguel.
El caso Diablo.
Sí, qué cosa curiosa. Eso sí, es algo difícil. Oh, también no sabía que tenían casinos en Baja California, pues hace años, pero no sabía que había casinos, pero existía una conexión o me parecía que existía una conexión en los años 30 o en los años 30, en los años 20, entre prohibición y el uso de casinos para venir de Estados Unidos y tomar alcohol en México. Y no sabía nada de eso.
Hmm.
Aunque es lógico, durante la prohibición, ¿no?
Y también eran muy popular con los personas famosos, los celebridades.
Ok, sí, las personas célebres, sí.
Celebres.
Sí. Pues sí, tiene sentido. It makes sense. Tiene sentido, porque también en Cuba, ¿no? Muchos en los años 20, durante la prohibición aquí en Estados Unidos, mucha gente iba a Cuba para tomar y para llevar alcohol, rum, especialmente, creo, desde Cuba a Estados Unidos. No solamente para beber, pero para llevar cantidades enormes de ron a Estados Unidos, ilegalmente, claro. Pero no sabía que tenían casinos en Ensenada hace años, ¿no? Con mafiosos también. Ok. Y noté también los techos de ese hotel.
Muy bien.
Los techos, muy elegantes. Pero claro, otra vez tiene sentido porque si tienes un hotel y quieres atraer a clientes con dinero, hay que decorar un hotel de manera muy elegante para atraer a clientes, ¿no? Bueno, algo más. Sí, Teresa.
Yo fui a Ensenada en un crucero. Fue una excursión de el crucero y fui a un viñedo operado por los descendientes del presidente Obregón.
Oh,
Y,
qué interesante.
y nos dijeron que Obregón es español por O'Brien.
Oh, de veras, wow, qué raro.
Sí, fue muchos años en pasado.
Como
Casi,
equivalente más o menos,
sí.
o era broma, ¿no?
No, es
No,
la
de verdad.
familia. La familia fueron los guías.
Oh, ok. Wow. Obregón, O'Brien, Obregón. Oh, ¡ay! Wow. Muy curioso, muy
Sí, sí.
curioso. Bueno, sí, y dijeron en el video que la ciudad más importante para los cruceros es Cozumel y la segunda ciudad es Ensenada,
Mm.
¿sí? Para turistas que vienen en crucero o por
¿Y Puerto
crucero.
Vallarta? ¿No Puerto Vallarta?
Me imagino también, sí, sería importante tener,
Quizás tercero.
sí, 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 con cruceros, ¿no?
Fui al bufador hace muchos años.
Oh, sí, de verdad.
Durante mi primer viaje a México, cuando tenía 20 años.
He viajado o había viajado hace años a Ensenada, pero nunca vi Bufadora, no sabía nada de eso. ¿Es espectacular?
No.
Oh, no tanto.
El mar fue muy tranquilo este día.
Y sí, el narrador nos dijo que depende mucho del clima, depende mucho del tiempo, ¿sí?
No
Las
salía
olas.
mucho impresión.
Ok, no fue tan impresionante. Entonces, no fue tan impresionante. Porque sí, me imagino que sí es una temporada de tormentas con olas enormes, entonces sí, sería más impresionante. Pero, pues sí, ok. A ver, ¿algo más de Ensenada? ¿De algo que notaron ustedes de Ensenada o no? O ya no,
La comida.
¿no? La comida, la comida, langostas, sí. Echo de menos mucho la habilidad de encontrar mariscos frescos. Es muy difícil encontrar mariscos frescos aquí porque me encantan los mariscos, pero aquí en el desierto no es muy común, entonces es difícil. Quiero comer, langosta, langosta frita.
Mm.
El pescado es muy barato en Punto Penasco.
Pues sí, tan cerca del mar, ¿no?
En Cabo.
En Cabo,
También. Ujú.
sí.
Poco
Sí.
más lejos.
Pues sí, pero todavía hay, se puede encontrar, sí, pescado fresco, mariscos frescos, pues fácilmente, ¿no? Cerca del mar. Y aquí no es tan común. Sí, pero langosta frita, nunca he comido langosta frita. Pues, ok. Interesante. Bueno, ok. Nada más de eso. A ver, ok. Vamos a ver. Quiero mostrarles algo
Sí,
ahora.
Marilyn? Sí,
Perdón,
Marilyn?
Roy, sí.
Are we finished with the Ensenada video then?
No, si tienes algo más,
Oh,
dime.
well, I just have a question about how he used estuvo twice in the transcripts.
Oh,
He said estuvo espectacular. Estuvo espectacular. And then he also said estuvo abandonado. And
okay.
my translator says it should be fue espectacular and fue abandonado.
Abandonado. Pues, ok, vale. Depende un poquito o depende mucho en el contexto. Abandonado, si se usa como descripción, if they use this as a description,
El edificio estuvo abandonado.
and especially if they give you a time period, like in this decade, they name a specific time, estuvo abandonado. If it's been given more as a descriptive thing, estar will be more common. Fue abandonado would be passive voice. Y tienes una pregunta muy interesante, Roy. I'm going to bring up a quick share screen just to give you a quickie idea. Because actually this is something that winds up being, can you guys see my blank screen? See,
Yeah.
give me a shout out. See, okay, vale. This is a topic that people who highlight difficulties that English speakers have with Spanish frequently point to this. And it's one of those ser estar things too, that can be kind of confusing. So, this is a good question. If we use ser with abandonado, like if we were to use fue abandonado, that would be an honest to goodness, real, true, I'm going to call it true, passive voice. Passive voice says something was acted upon by somebody else. ¿Cuál es la diferencia? Es un poquito más fácil de explicarlo en inglés. And it's easier for me to explain this to you in English because Spanish does not use this fue abandonado very much at all. And if they were to use it, it would usually be fue abandonado por, and then we would name una persona o personas. This por thing would become kind of important. Okay, true passive voice means we're using is or was and a past participle. Well, who cares? Okay. What you're saying is, so here's the contrast. Instead of saying the original owners abandoned this hotel, I'll just take an example. See? Los dueños abandonaron el hotel. That would be the normal way to describe in Spanish that the hotel was abandoned. You could say el hotel fue abandonado por los dueños. Por los dueños. You could say that, but it's very rare to use that in Spanish. They prefer not to do passive voice, except maybe in kind of formal writing, with formal writing. So it would be much more common to say fue to say los dueños abandonaron el hotel. And a lot of people who teach Spanish, native speakers, say they find it very annoying that Americans want to use this thing that I've shown you in blue because they just don't bother with it very much in Spanish, especially spoken Spanish. But it would be okay. With passive voice, we're shifting the action off. We're saying an agent, somebody like the owners abandoned this, but we're not putting the owners in the active verb role, if that makes sense. That's what passive voice does. But estuve abandonado tells a condition the hotel was in. And it's saying it was abandoned. It does not talk about who did it, an outside agent picking on this poor hotel and fleeing from the site. It just talks about the state the hotel was in.
Marilyn,
Yeah, see.
is there any possibility that some of this has to do with permanence? Like if you talk about the state of a hotel, then they used a star. I mean, yes, it was abandoned, but it could be occupied again tomorrow. But if a person abandoned something, then that person did it once and only once.
Yeah, in kind of a tangential way, maybe. maybe. I don't want to say for sure, yes, although that's an interesting proposition. But yeah, estar is always talking about a state or a condition. Well, and the reason I don't want to go there and say that, because it's merely a description, whereas fue abandonado, passive voice, is not a description. It's saying, here was the a condition of the hotel, and it was imposed on the hotel by somebody doing this. Okay, so it's a real grammar-y kind of thing, but people who are native speakers get kind of annoyed that Americans always want to use passive voice. So to say fue abandonado or estuve abandonado would be just saying, oh, here was the state it was found in this year, or on this date when the new owners took over, you know, or whatever it might be. Or it was abandoned in the pandemic, like we've got a real small period of time. So, you know, we can use that preterite thing. Sí, Teresa.
Quizás significa una acción que ocurre en el pasado, como
Yeah.
ejemplo,
Sí,
la
tienes razón.
la fortaleza fue abandonado durante la noche por el ejército.
Sí. Lo expresaste mejor que yo. You expressed it better than I. Fue abandonado por indicates an action, but it was done by somebody else on this thing. The hotel obviously didn't abandon anybody, right? But these people abandoned the hotel. So, sí, it expresses an action that actually was done, but it was imposed upon these people or this object by somebody else. Okay. And the verb does not reflect who does the action. It reflects that somebody else did this to this person or this object, in this case, the hotel, el hotel, if we're talking about that. Whereas estuvo abandonado talks about the condition of the hotel. And I know that, well, it is very grammar-y. It is. So it kind of goes in the weeds, but you know, the thing is, we use passive voice in English a lot. And Spanish just very seldom does that. So Roy, when they're doing that, they want you, the focus is not on the action of abandoning, but the fact it's in a state of nobody in there.
Well, you know, we might use the passive voice a lot in English, but at least we don't say that it forgot me.
Yeah. You know, one thing is not right or wrong. It's maybe right for the native users of that language, or more common for the users of one language and not for another. But that passive voice thing for native speakers, it kind of annoys them when Americans like to use that. It's one of those things that when people talk about it, they kind of go, oh, why do Americans always, you know, and it's just kind of, you know, that grain under their, that bothers them, that really annoys. I don't know why, but
I guess
I
I
hope
just
that
got
helps a
hung,
little bit, Roy.
I guess I just got hung up because in our books, it says that estar is for changing mood or condition, whereas ser is for, you know, a description. So I didn't see this as being much of a changeable condition.
Well, I would
guess
say
you
that,
could change it.
well, oh, but it could be because something could
Well-
be abandoned, but somebody could reclaim it or
Right, but
buy
if you say estuvo espectacular, is it only
okay.
spectacular for just a second?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that thing with ser and estar, you know, I've heard people sometimes use estar with something that I would normally use ser with. but when people put estar, when people use estar with something like espectacular, like that one, they're talking more about like putting themselves in the moment of, wow, how they perceived it, how it seemed to them, rather than how that thing really is, what their feeling was about it. Kind of like, okay, and this is another description, Roy. People will say, está muy rico, está muy rico. The food is, when they're talking about food, está rico. And what they're really saying is, that looks delicious to me. That's how I perceive it.
Yeah, that would fall under this personal opinion in terms of taste or appearance, and so that would fit for this.
And
this
that,
frugal
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. And, I would say with that, I would, I don't know if this helps or not, but I would go with the flow. If somebody says, está espectacular. Yeah, I would be more likely to say fue espectacular. It really was like a big wow. But I go with the flow. And if I hear somebody using that, I say, ooh, that's very personal to them. That's how it struck them. And they felt that.
Great.
Go with the flow. If they're using it, it's okay. But they're kind of giving it a little more personal flavor by doing that. That's my opinion. Es mi opinión. Para mí.
Okay, well, I figured he wasn't making a mistake. That's his native
No,
language.
no, yeah, right. Yeah. Eso es. Well, but that's actually a helpful thing to know, because yes, if a native speaker is doing that, he's putting a little punch into it. Yeah. He's giving it his own little personal twist, and telling you how it seemed to him, how he perceived it by using estar with that.
Right.
And that's the reason for using that.
Okay.
Odd as that may seem, to us, that may seem odd. Rightly so. But, because we don't really, we have none of those, matices. We have none of those subtleties. We have very few of those. Well, we do have subtleties in English, but we don't have that kind of subtlety in English that they do in Spanish with those two things for, estar. Es como, eso es. That's just what they do. Buena pregunta. It's a good question. Okay. Bien. Algo más? Anything else? Or word use for that matter. Gracias, Roy. Thank you. Because sometimes it might not be the actual thing, but why did they say it this way? And that's a good question. Es buena pregunta. No. Okay. Bueno, quiero darles un poquito de una idea de una expresión especial, mejor decir una palabra, dos palabras especiales, because even in the Ensenada thing, I heard this a couple of times, and I knew this was coming up for this week. I had hoped to do it last week, and we didn't have time. No había suficiente tiempo. But this little word, cualquier, and because I've got it on share screen now, if you raise your hand, I will not see your hand. So feel free to pipe up and interrupt if you've got a question. I want you to hear a little bit of the differences between cualquiera and cualquier. And el título, tiene el título del video aquí como un profesor cualquiera. And you'll kind of see why. We may not play the whole thing, but I want you to get a feel for the difference. And I'm
Oye, ¿me
trying to
dejas
see.
un boli, por favor? Sí, ¿de qué color lo quieres? Me da igual, uno cualquiera.
Yeah. Cualquier. ¿Qué quiere decir cualquier o cualquiera?
Whatever.
Yeah, like, see, whatever, any old one. Okay, but sometimes you hear it expressed as cualquier and sometimes as cualquiera. So he's going to give us a little rundown, and I think I need to skip into the main part to get into that so that we kind of get rid of the extra stuff we don't really need to listen to. Okay, switch.
Adelante.
Okay, adelante is what we want. And I'll put on subtitles too, just in case.
Bien, pues antes de empezar, ¿de dónde viene cualquiera? Es curioso.
Oh, but he's going to talk about where this comes from. So this ties into word origin too. It actually comes from two words that become, what do they call it? Portmanteau? Portmanteau? I forget the name. Oh, two words you smash together, the thing that the Germans love to do too. Okay. Cualquiera really comes from cual and quiera. Cual and quiera. Oh, okay. So what that word that means any old one or any, what it comes from is the word for which, cual, and quiera. And quiera presente en el subjuntivo de querer. So cualquiera really comes from whichever one you want. Oh, does that make sense now? The word cualquier or cualquiera, its other form, comes from smushing together which and you want, or you might want, right? Because cualquiera or quiera would be subjunctive, meaning you might want or you may want. So that makes sense that we would use that to express the idea of any or anyone. You're not particular about which one, okay?
Lo he buscado antes, yo no lo sabía, y viene de cualquiera. ¿Y qué expresa esto? Pues básicamente expresa indeterminación. Cualquiera y cualquiera expresan pues este valor de indeterminación.
Ah, sí, una persona, una cosa indeterminada. It means any old one, that you're not referring to a specific person or a specific thing.
Pues de elegir algo pues no determinado, cualquier cosa. Bien, vamos a empezar por cualquier. ¿Cuándo utilizamos cualquier? Bien, pues cualquier se utiliza antes del sustantivo. Por ejemplo,
Antes del sustantivo. Sustantivo quiere decir noun. Noun. A name of a person, place, or thing. So essentially, we truncate the word. We drop the a at the end when we use cualquier in front of a noun. Okay, and he'll have some more examples.
por ejemplo, antes le he pedido a ese tío con gafas un bolígrafo y me ha dicho, ¿cuál quieres? Y yo le he dicho, cualquier bolígrafo me sirve. Cualquier bolígrafo es bueno. Cualquier.
And so notice it's got to be in front of a singular noun, not a plural one, but cualquier. And that's the way you usually hear that when it aparece antes de un sustantivo en singular. Cualquier, the shortened form without the a at the end of the word, happens when you put it right in front of the noun, and that noun is a singular noun. It's a onesie noun. No importa si es masculino o femenino. The gender doesn't matter with this word, probably because it expresses an any old thing idea. Me imagino, I think.
Bien, utilizamos cualquier antes del sustantivo y nos da igual si es masculino, como por ejemplo bolígrafo, o femenino, como por ejemplo puede ser silla. Oye, ¿en qué silla te quieres sentar? Bueno, me puedo sentar en cualquier silla. Me da igual en cuál sentarme. Me sirve cualquiera.
So, cualquier silla. Silla, there's our noun. Cualquier. Siéntese en cualquier silla. Sit down in any old chair. Sit down in any chair, meaning just take your pick. I don't care which one. And that's what the cualquier indicates, any old one.
Y después tenemos cualquiera. ¿Cuándo se utiliza cualquiera? Bien, pues cualquiera, como mucha gente podría pensar, no es que sea el femenino de cualquier.
So a lot of people think cualquiera is a feminine form, but it is not. No es palabra femenina específicamente. Termina en A, sí, la última letra es A, pero cualquiera no tiene forma masculina, no. Cualquiera no es el femenino de cualquier. So we're not adding an "a" onto it to make it into a feminine word. It is doing that because it is going to stand alone or stand behind the noun.
Cualquier, no, sino que se utiliza detrás del sustantivo. Por ejemplo, en lugar de decir cualquier bolígrafo, podría decir un bolígrafo cualquiera. Y
So you could say cualquier bolígrafo, if it comes in front of bolígrafo, but bolígrafo es esto, ¿sí? Se dice bole en España, pluma en México, ¿no? La cosa que usamos con tinta, with ink, con tinta, ¿sí? Con que es el instrumento con el que sí escribimos. Ok. Bolígrafo cualquiera o cualquier bolígrafo. Or sometimes we just use cualquiera. If it's understood, you're talking about bolígrafo, you've got a thing full of pens, yeah? And nowadays this has become important because you go to the doctor's office and they've got the used pens and the clean pens, right? Por COVID. So, somebody might say, toma cualquiera, take any one, because they know you're talking about bolígrafo. So they may even not use the sustantivo. Okay, they may just drop the word bolígrafo and just use cualquiera, anyone.
tendrían absolutamente el mismo significado. Expresarían este valor de indeterminación que te he explicado antes. Vamos a ver un ejemplo. Oye, estoy pensando en dar clases de español. ¿Me recomiendas algún profesor?
¿Me recomiendas algún profesor? Can you recommend some teacher to me? Algún. So he wants some teacher recommended.
Cualquier profesor es bueno.
Cualquier profesor es bueno. Any teacher is good. Choose anybody.
No sé. Elija cualquiera.
Choose anyone. And cualquiera stands by itself. So it goes into that longer form with the a at the end, cualquiera. But cualquiera can refer to profesor, a masculine thing. It is not a feminine word, para que sepan, so you know.
Recomiendas uno, pues mucho mejor. Tampoco quiero aprender con cualquier persona.
Yeah, I can't learn with any old person.
Quiero aprender con alguien pues, que tenga algunos conocimientos para enseñar español. Bueno, pues si es así, puedes buscar en cualquier plataforma de estas online.
Puedes buscar en cualquier plataforma. You can look at any online platform, any. And because any comes in front of plataforma, cualquier plataforma.
Online. Sí, cierto, es verdad. Puedo buscar en alguna de estas plataformas. Sí. Oye, he escuchado hablar del profesor Vicente de YouTube. ¿Me lo recomiendas? ¿Vicente? No sé yo, tío. No sé. Parece un cualquiera. Bien, pues como habéis visto, podéis encontrar profesores de español en cualquier plataforma o en una plataforma cualquiera. Bien, y vamos con cualesquiera. ¿Cuándo utilizamos cualesquiera? Bien.
Okay, and I'm not going to get a lot into cualesquiera because you don't honestly hear that much. There is a plural form. If you want to watch that later for your own edification, I'll say go ahead. I don't want to spend too much time on cualesquiera, the plural form, because that won't be much of a thing, okay? You're going to hear cualquier and cualquiera a whole lot. So next time we've got a listening drill, listen for cualquier and cualquiera, because you'll start to notice it, and it just means any old. Okay.
So if you were to say whichever books, you would say cualesquiera libros?
Yeah, but I don't really even hear people using it that much.
Do they just say cualquier libro?
Yeah, cualquier libro. Right. The way you're normally going to hear that You know, as a matter of fact, I had to listen kind of hard when I got to that part because I'm not used to hearing people use that like ever. I'm sure somebody does, but in normal conversation, I don't hear people using it that much, right? Toma cualquier libro, take any old book. Toma cualquier libro. ¿Qué marca de vino me recomiendas? What brand of wine do you recommend? Cualquiera, me da igual. Cualquiera, any old one. Me da igual, all the same to me.
So it's pretty easy to avoid the plural reference in common day speech.
It's very, yeah, sí. Eso es. Exacto. Exacto. It is very easy to avoid. You just don't hear it very much. I mean, I could probably pick out 5 videos and you would hear cualquier or cualquiera once in any 20-minute, at least once, maybe twice in any 15, 20-minute video, but you're not going to hear the plural. You're just, you know, it's not a big deal. Okay. Bien? So that's the little noise difícil. It's not that hard. Yeah.
One last question then.
Okay.
So if after the noun or the person, you would use cualquiera. If you had after a plural noun, would you say cualquieras?
Cualesquiera. I think it's the cualesquiera. You know, you'll have to listen more for it because
okay.
I never hear people using that. I just don't. So you'll hear, but the reason I point this out is that a lot of people think because cualquiera ends in an a, that it's a feminine thing, and it isn't. Okay, so when you hear cualquiera, or when you want to use and say, oh, any old one, cualquiera, yeah. You know, somebody gives you a basket, you know, you get to choose out of a group of things. Cualquiera, no me importa, any old
The
one.
key difference is just before or after.
Right. If
Something
I'm using it
people.
alone with no noun at all, it's cualquiera. If I use it after the noun, cualquiera. But if it comes in front of the noun, it's kind of like what you do with primer and un and tercer. It's like that. It's truncated. Yeah. So you cut off the a.
Or bueno.
Yeah, buen, igual, mal, instead of malo, right? So it gets that truncated form. It's one of those little words that falls in that category of we cut off the final vowel. But that vowel, don't think that the cualquiera means feminine, because we use it for everything, which is not the case with buena, or, you know, bueno, buena, or buena. Buena idea. Buen libro. Yeah, there you go into gender, but cualquier libro, no importa. Any old book, doesn't matter. ¿Sí? Bien, sí, Teresa.
Cualquiera es usado más con personas.
Se
Cualquiera,
usa cualquier con personas, cosas, con todo. Si es sustantivo, if it's a noun, se puede usar. If it's a noun, you can use it. Se refiere a personas, a objetos, a ideas, a todo. Todo que es sustantivo. Everything that's a noun. You can use it with everything. So it's super es versátil. Wow, it is like super versatile. You can use it a lot. And people use it when they're referring to any old item out of a group. Perfecto. Okay. Bien? Bien? Because undoubtedly you will hear it pop up. And so if it's going solo or after a noun, cualquiera, the longer form. Otherwise, we cut it short. Yay. Okay. Bien? Vale. Bueno, okay. Ahora quiero hablar un poquito de el otro video de could. Era más difícil. This one was harder. Y vamos a ver, momentito. Quiero coordinar esto aquí mejor. Y quiero avanzar un poquito aquí. ¿Dónde está? Ah, bien, ¿no? Ok. A ver. Momentito, porque quiero que practiquemos este, este tema un poquito más hoy en clase. Aquí. ¿Recuerdan ustedes este video? There are different ways to say could. And here's why. Sí, es un juego de palabras. It's a play of words. And this is one that confuses a lot of people. And you may leave today still being a little confused, but think of it in terms of what do you mean? And it will start to make some sense. So she's trying to define between pude, all the flavors of poder. A bunch of different flavors of poder in different tenses. So pude,
Podía,
podía,
podría, o
podría,
pudiera.
pudiera. Wow, all of those words can be translated as could. They all mean could, but the first one, sí, el primer verbo, pude, pretérito. Algo que ya terminó, ¿sí? El pretérito significa o indica una acción terminada. Fácil. Bueno, pude, could, past. Podía, could, imperfecto. Pretérito primero, imperfecto segundo, ¿sí? Podría, condicional. Guy, también es could. Y pudiera también, subjuntivo, subjuntivo imperfecto. So we go from preterite, pude, imperfecto, podía, condicional, podría, y subjuntivo imperfecto, pudiera. All those things can be translated as could, but we use them in different situations. So before I launch into a maybe shorter way, she showed you some examples. Did that video make sense to you, or did it muck up the waters even worse?
It made pretty good sense.
Pretty good sense. Okay. Vale. Because this could be a rather murky topic. It could be. It could. It could. So let's take a little look and let's see if we can figure out. So, okay. The briefest answer is whether somebody uses, and I'll put this in because I ran up a new little thing here. Can you see my list of all those verbs? See or no? Do I have it on the right? Momentito. Hang on a quick second because sadly my transition to Windows 10 sometimes doesn't show everything the way I want to. Okay, bien. Okay, see? Pude or pudo, and it depends, right? I could put pude, pudiste, pudo, pudimos, pudieron, all those things that are pretérito. All of those forms. Oh, why did it not give me my accent mark of podía? Podría, condicional, pudiera. Okay, so the key is, if all these things mean could, why are they confusing me with so many different words, so many different tenses to say could? Well, it's more like the English doesn't have that breadth of verb tenses to use could, or maybe we do, and we just don't call it those things. Oh, there you go. We probably do have that. We just don't call it those things. All right. And nobody, and if you did hear of it, you probably heard about it maybe in 6th grade, and who the heck remembers that? So, okay. So here's a distinction. If we use, or if somebody who's talking to you uses pude, pudiste, pudo, pudimos, pudieron, what they mean is someone actually did or didn't do it, that something actually happened. Something actually happened and ended, because that's what the essence of pretérito is, right? Una acción terminada, algo que ya pasó, already happened. Okay, so if could means that you actually did it or you actually didn't do it, you couldn't manage to get it done, or you did manage to get it done, it's going to be pude or pudo. And that's what they're indicating, that, yep, it really did happen. If somebody uses podía or any of its flavors of podía, podías, podíamos, podían, what they're really saying is somebody was able, they had the ability, they could do it, as in they used to. It's that used to idea, you know, that it was done a lot, not like, wow, man, he couldn't get the tire off that car. Not that one and done event, but something that you could do in the past, as in it was frequent. It was something that was with you a long time. Okay.
But Marilyn, if you said yesterday he couldn't get the tire off the car, then it's back to pude.
It's the pude, pudiste, pudo. Exacto, Roy. Sí. It's talking about a one and done event. Okay, a one and done. But see, in English, we don't really distinguish that. Wow, he couldn't change the tire versus, gee, he couldn't, or let's make it affirmative because that's maybe a little more common. Wow. Oh, he could ride a bike with all those kids. He could be right up in front. Wow. He could race that bike when he was a kid. We use could for both, but you know, we kind of sub other words in to give that flavor of the one and done. You know, when somebody says, wow, he couldn't change the tire, you usually take it to mean a one and done. But they use a different verb tense to say that in Spanish, okay? If what you really mean is, do you mean that someone conditionally would do it? If that's what you mean, then you want this flavor, that condicional. And I think one of the examples she used was something like, sí, podría ayudarte, pero hoy no tengo tiempo. Yeah, I could help you, but today I don't have time. Okay, that kind of thing, conditional. And the last one is still kind of conditional, but it's often used with a C clause, a C, and the C, not meaning the C of yes, but the C that means if. If I were you, I would do something. Yeah. Okay. Are you talking about meaning that somebody else would do it if something else happened? A hypothetical situation, and I should really amend this to say that it will have a C clause, an if clause attached to it. Then it will become pudiera, and pudiera is that imperfect subjunctive. So let's take a look at these four ideas. Estas cuatro ideas. Puedo contar, sí, cuatro aquí. ¿Cómo diría? Y, momentito, I'm going to take it off share now. Would you rather go off and do it singularly or do it all together? Would you rather do it in breakout rooms with a partner or do it together?
Let's do it all together.
Todos juntos. Ok, vale, bien, ok, vale. Manos a la obra, hands to work. Ok, a ver. Let's see if we can figure out, and we may have some discussion here about, ¿qué opinan? What do you guys think? He could swim 1 mile when he could swim a whole mile when he was a kid.
Podía nadar un mile cuando
Una
era
milla.
un niño.
Bien, sí, cuando era niño. Cuando era niño, cuando era muchacho, cuando era, muy pequeño, no importa, right? Any of those would say when he was a kid. Cuando era pequeño, cuando era niño, cuando era muchacho, no importa, right? Any of those convey the idea of when he was a kid. Cuando era joven. Cuando era joven might convey more the idea was he was young. Like he could be getting into his teen years there. Okay, see.
What if it was something, Marilyn, like he could do something when he was 5 years old? Would it still be the same thing?
Sí, sí, exacto. Sí, sí. Sí. Podía jugar. Podía jugar al fútbol cuando tenía 10 años. Sí, exacto. And notice a lot of times with this, you might wind up still getting 2 clauses, but you might not have the cuando part. You might not, somebody might just say something like, sí, Elena podía hablar italiano. Pero ya no, but not anymore. Yeah. It might be kind of a truncated second half, right? Or, you could just leave it there. But if I leave it just there, Elena podía hablar italiano, it means she could speak Italian in the idea of she used to be able to. She used to be able to. And it's not talking about a one and done event, an ability that she had at some time in her past.
Does that mean she's not able to do it now? Is that what that means?
Not always. No, not always. It might mean ella podía hablar italiano y todavía puede hablarlo. And she can still speak it. It won't necessarily mean that ability isn't there anymore. No. I think they did that to give it clarity
So you use
in the
pude,
examples. See, Pat,
you
dime.
could use pude. I could do it yesterday. I could do it yesterday. Would be pude because it's a one.
La diferencia. Let's look at the difference. Let's take a look at podía jugar al fútbol. Podía jugar al fútbol. I could even take this whole thing off, and this still makes sense. Podía jugar al fútbol. Oh, he could play soccer. He could play soccer. Yeah. But I'm changing the intention quite a lot if I phrase this as pudo jugar al fútbol. And how I'm changing the intent is I am indicating, oh, he managed to do that a specific time. It might be today, it might be yesterday, it might be 2 hours ago.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but it's indicating a one time only event. Maybe people were talking about quizás hablaban de los horarios de muchos equipos de fútbol. Maybe they were talking about the schedules of many football teams, and they want to tell you, sí, Pablo pudo jugar al fútbol. Oh, Pablo managed to play. he got in that right schedule. They fit it in his schedule, that he actually did that. Okay. But it's not talking about an ability he had for a long time, just whatever he got done. Pudo really gets that idea of got it done. It conveys a got it done idea.
Okay. Cuando era joven, podía beber mucho alcohólico. Y,
Mucho
y-
alcohol.
y ahora vamos a ver.
Y ahora vamos a ver, and now we'll just see. Yeah. Sí. En mi juventud, yo podía beber mucho alcohol y ahora vamos a ver. Well, now we'll just see. More likely, you know, how somebody's going to respond. Pero ya no. Not anymore. Yeah, that's going to be the usual response, right? Ya no. Okay, you'll get a few people who will chime in if they got it, you know, and then are a real want to say macho mood. Y todavía sí. Y todavía sí puedo hacerlo. Yeah, I can still belt that down. Yeah, sí, eso es. Magnífico. Sí. Okay. Bien. You got a little bit of a feel for that? You know, getting a feel for these two is kind of important, because if the idea you want to convey or the idea somebody wants to push out to you is somebody could do that and they mean they used to be able to. The used to be able to is going to be this one. But if somebody wants to talk about one time, they're going to push that one out. Okay, a particular event. Oh, la idea. Here's a different idea entirely. I could help you with your computer. Oh, yeah, anytime this week. ¿Cómo se expresa? How would you express it? ¿Cómo se expresa?
Podría.
Podría ayudarle con su computador cualquier tiempo esta semana.
Sí, podría ayudarle con su computadora, or, you know, it might be in a friendly sense. At any time. Any old time.
Cualquier tiempo.
Sí. And let's make it hora. En cualquier hora. Because that's, yeah, hora carries more the idea of, you know, a specific time. Sí. En cualquier hora. Esta semana. Sí. Okay, bien. Podría. Here you definitely get that conditional thing. You know, I could help you. It isn't happening now, or it didn't happen in the past, but we're talking about what might be possible, right? What might be possible.
Hey, Marilyn, that wouldn't be ayudarte, would it? I mean, I guess
It could be ayudarte, sí. If you wanted to, if you're talking with somebody on a friendly basis, sí. Podría ayudarte con tu computadora. Sí. Exacto. Depende. Depends on if you're using a friendly you or a formal you. Sí. Eso es. Okay. Tomás couldn't buy a beer because the bar was closed.
Tomás no pudo comprar una cerveza porque el bar fue cerrado.
Sí, una cerveza. Porque el bar estaba cerrado. Cerrado. El bar estaba cerrado. I'm talking about the state, whether it was open or closed. Estaba cerrado. Bien. Ok. Pero muy importante, sí, no pudo comprar. No pudo comprar, no pudo tomar, no pudo beber, nada así. El bar estaba cerrado. Ok. Bien. Fantástico. Ok. Oh, what if I want to say, he managed to find a different bar? Or better yet, another bar. He was persistent, ¿sí? Muy persistente. Ok. ¿Cómo se dice? He managed to find another bar.
Well, he was able to do it, so it would be podía.
Well, he managed. He walked right away. Shoot, cerrado is on the door. And he turned away and walked 5 blocks down and boom, there he goes. We're still talking about
Él pudo encontrar
sí,
un otro bar.
pudo encontrar otro bar. Pudo encontrar, let's make it even maybe a little clearer. Later, he managed, later,
Más tarde.
más tarde, or, luego, right? Or después, any of those ideas get across the idea of later on, ¿sí? Pudo encontrar otro bar, okay? Now, why not podía here? Why would I not use podía here?
No es condicional.
Yeah, see, we're talking about a corollary to the first statement, okay? If he couldn't buy one at this place, he turned around and he got it done someplace else.
Would you say that this is an action that interrupted a pre-existing condition? Because
it didn't interrupt, it followed.
That's the imperfect is the pre-existing condition, and then the past is the action that interrupted it.
Well, I would say more it's that it's just a continuation. It's still what happened later. It's just what happened later. What happened first was couldn't get a beer in the first place. What happened second was he just found a different place and he got it done. Okay. He wanted a drink really badly. Okay. Bien. But see, if I used podía encontrar, it would indicate that he was able to find a bar. Like
Many times.
it talks about an ability and something that really kind of went on for a long time. And that's not really what you mean. What you mean was he got ticked off that there was, cerrado on the door of el bar, turned around and went out and found something else. So one of the keys is when somebody uses this, speaks to you, they're indicating done. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Not a long-term ability in the past, right? This up here with Elena podía hablar italiano is a long-term ability over a long time in the past. We don't know how long, but pretty long, right? Really indefinite, a long time, an ability that lasted for a long time. Here, we're talking about what happened to this guy one particular evening, right? Here's what he couldn't do, what he didn't get done, and here's what he did get done.
Es pretérito.
Pretérito, aquí. Y es el sentido, the meaning, that meaning, somebody will use that tense to tell you, oop, it happened. Okay. Oh, we couldn't.
Marilyn, before we leave that one, I mean, you
Sí,
wouldn't
sí.
have just said encontró otro bar. there's some nuance here that makes you want to put
Oh,
in there. Yeah, so-
could we change this to encontró? You
Mhm.
could, sí.
Okay.
Podrías, conditionally, you could.
Okay, but
Podrías come here.
we want to convey he could find, so that's why we put.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see.
Encontró, después encontró otro bar. You could just shorten it, and yes, that would also say got it done, but it just doesn't talk about managed. Oh, yeah. Pudo largely indicates managed, or if it's negative, didn't managed to do it. Okay,
Very
it
good.
carries that nuance. And if you want to avoid that idea altogether, just go straight into pretérito and go for one verb, right? Sí, vale, bien. But you know, if somebody speaks to you using it, you'll know what they mean, right? Esto sí es interesante. This is interesting. We couldn't travel during the pandemic. Ooh.
No podíamos
Podría-
viajar durante la pandemia.
¿Qué opinan ustedes otra vez?
I'd say
Obviamente no.
no
No
podíamos.
No
podíamos.
podíamos. We're probably talking about no podíamos viajar durante la pandemia. That would carry more that idea of we didn't have the ability. But now it changes it a little bit if we say no pudimos viajar durante la pandemia. We change it just very, very slightly there. No pudimos viajar would change the nuance to we didn't manage to get that done even once.
O no
Okay.
pudimos viajar durante la pandemia por el verano.
Sí, quizás, maybe, sí. But probably what they're talking, in all likelihood, is probably more likely that somebody, if they use podíamos, they're talking about what we were not able, what ability was not available to us for kind of a long and indefinite period of time. See? Bien? Okay, so people will talk at you using, they'll give a feel for how final that is. And was it an actual reality thing, or was it just an inability? An inability is imperfecto, podía. Got it done or didn't get it done is a pude, pudo, pudiste. Okay, so that's how to look at it. I would drink all night if I could sleep all morning. Ooh, we've got an if. We've got a magic if.
Pudiera beber toda la noche si
Okay.
duermo todo
Dormía.
mañana.
Dormía.
Bebería, I would
Bebería.
drink. Bebería toda la noche. Si I could sleep. Si
Dormiría.
pudiera
Pudiera dormir
dormir toda la mañana. Bien. And this is kind of a magical thing. This is a true hypothetical situation. The would drink is a condicional, and the C carries the hypothetical part. See? Si pudiera dormir, if I could sleep all morning, but I can't sleep all morning because I got to go to work. See? Okay. And that pudiera, this is actually a pretty commonly used when people are talking about wishes. This little C thing with pudiera is often what people use when they say, boy, I wish I could, but there's something, standing in my way, right? Bien. Okay. Oh, she could calculate everything with just paper and pencil.
Ella pudo calcular todo.
Think about it. She could calculate. Am I putting a time frame on it? Or do you perceive this?
Podía.
This is something that is more like an ability. Okay. Ella podía calcular todo. Muy vago, very vague, right? Todo. Solo con
Papel y lápiz.
Papel y lápiz, sí. Ok.
Y
Ahora necesita un calculador, ¿sí? Calculador, ¿es calculador o calculadora? No recuerdo.
Ellen,
Sí.
do you mean ella podía calcular?
Calcular, perdón. Gracias. Calcular. Gracias, calcular. Muchas gracias. Ella podía calcular todo solo con lápiz y papel y lápiz. Ahora necesito un calculador, ¿sí? No recuerdo. Calculadora, calculador, no recuerdo. Okay, vale. Elena could see that movie because, Elena she could see that movie. She managed to do that because she had Netflix.
Elena pudo ver esta película porque tenía Netflix.
Exacto. Netflix. Sí, ella pudo ver esa película. Película, sometimes people shorten it to peli porque tenía Netflix. And we're talking about, that probably carries that idea of a specific movie, therefore a specific time, right? How would it be different if I just said, Elena could watch any movie at all
Podía.
with Netflix?
Ella
That
podía.
changes the idea a little bit. Elena sí podía
ver.
Podía ver. ¿Cómo se dice any movie at all?
Cualquier
Cualquier
peli.
película con Netflix. And here really, even though we use could in both of those, the feeling you probably get in English is that you're talking about what she was able to do whenever, at any old time. Whereas this carries with it really subtly kind of the idea of you're talking about a specific movie. Okay, bien? But keep in mind, when people speak to you and they plug that pudo ver, they mean that time, podía ver. Oh, more like an ability, but in the past. Right? See? Oh, I've got an if. If I could buy an electric car, I would save a lot of money. It's the hypothetical situation.
Si pudiera comprar un carro eléctrico, ahorro mucho dinero.
Exacto. Ahorrar es to save.
Ahorrar.
Eléctrico. Ahorraría. What a tongue twister. Trabalenguas. Ahorraría. Ahorraría. I would
Roll the
say
R's.
ahorraría, ¿sí? Mucho dinero.
Yeah.
Sí, mucho dinero. Mucha lata, mucha lana, sí. Ok, bien, sí. Ahorraría. Un trabalenguas. Sí, eso es. Yeah, sí. And it would not be salvar. Yeah. There's another little word game. Salvar means to save when you're saving.
Person.
Saving a life.
Person. Un
Una vida.
animal, maybe your car. You're
Como
saving
rescue.
your car from a flood. Yeah, rescue. Salvar, la idea de sí, rescatar, rescuing something, pero ahorrar es solamente para dinero. Exacto. Bien, ok. Sí, un poquito mejor, a little better. Un
Creo que
poquito
sí.
mejor. Yeah, sí. And of course, in practice, it's a little bit complicated, but listen for it when you hear somebody talking about that, because they will plug in one tense or another to carry that little special meaning. Bien? Vale. Ok. Bueno, ¿alguna pregunta o no? No? Okay. There's so many flavors of could, and I wanted to, give you kind of a flavor for that. Okay. A ver. Antes de terminar, nos quedan 6 minutos. We got 6 minutes left. I want to give you a choice. Quiero que ustedes voten. I want you guys to vote. Quiero que ustedes voten. I want you guys to vote for a topic for a video, un video. I was toying with one idea, but I think they might talk a little bit faster than what you might be comfortable with. So I'm going to throw that one out. We could get a video para tarea para la semana que viene. ¿Cuál prefieren ustedes? Un video que se trata de tianguis, the experience of the little Mexican open market kind of stores, little Mexican stores. The experience of Mexican stores. También existe un video que habla de varios días feriados, various, and I shouldn't really say días feriados. They're not really holidays. Various types of, varias celebraciones en México. Varias celebraciones especiales, eventos especiales, festivales especiales en México, pues de festivales de verano, festivales de primavera, así, right? Things that are kind of popular to go to. Like if somebody asked you, do people go to Burning Man, in California? Yeah, that kind of thing. ¿Cuál de los dos prefieren ustedes? ¿Sí? ¿Algo de festivales o algo de tianguis, that little culture of little small mom and pop kind of stores?
Festivales.
Yes. Tianguis.
Oh.
¿Cuántos para tianguis? Okay, y festivales.
Lost.
It's kind of even. Okay, well, let's take one week and one the other. Okay, vale, sí. Let's take our tianguis first, and then we'll plug in the festivales, which is kind of interesting. And I do want to continue with the idea of words, word differences too. So I'm going to push out to you as well a video. And I hesitate with this, except it does kind of bring up an interesting difference of words. The idea of something being easy or hard, easy for hard, is sometimes expressed with different words. And the reason I hesitate with this is that, unfortunately, when this video was filmed, it was done outdoors on a windy day. So you're gonna get a lot of that, which kind of, yeah, is a little bit of an annoyance, but it is one of the, it is kind of a clever presentation on, would somebody express this idea with fácil or sencillo or simple? Interesante. And then they go into lo opuesto, ¿sí? Investigan también en el video la idea opuesta también de difícil, complejo, complicado. Y hay cosas sutiles, yeah, there's some kind of subtle differences there, but some of them will tend to use one word more than another. So what I want you to notice are the little tiny examples they give you, and that sometimes we don't really use fácil just as fácil, but as fácil de. Fácil de. So I want you to kind of watch that one too. It's going to be much more a grammar thing, but it'll be full of examples. Not really rule laden, but full of examples. And see if you can come up with maybe 1 or 2 examples using some of the things they talk about in that video, but not like 15 examples. No quiero 15 ejemplos. Quizás un ejemplo, 2 ejemplos, ¿sí? Con 2 palabras del video. ¿Sí? ¿Está bien? ¿Está bien? Ok, vale. Y vamos a terminar. No sé, creo que hay. Voy a hacer clic también. ¡Oh! Sí, hay. Voy a enviarles un artículo también. Un artículo porque es algo muy corriente, algo, sí, de un tema actual, a current topic. Y es un artículo bien corto, bien corto. Viene de eBay. eBay es un periódico. ¿Es revista o periódico? Creo que es periódico. Tiene oficinas en México, Venezuela, Argentina, Latinoamérica principalmente. No es periódico español, no, pero de Latinoamérica. Y México no impondrá sanciones a Rusia por invadir Ucrania. Y fíjense, por favor, please notice that when I send you this link, you will be able to do a little click. Sí, los audífonos, sí, el icono con audífonos, they'll do a little reading for you, so you can both read it and listen to it. Sí, así es interesante. No impondrá sanciones a Rusia por invadir Ucrania. AMLO es el presidente, es el apodo, I guess you could call that a nickname. AMLO es el nombre o el apodo para el presidente de México. Y Mexico will not impose sanctions on Russia for invading Ukraine. Oh! Okay, está en la minoría. This guy's in the minority. El presidente negó. He refused or denied. Sí, negó que haya entablado comunicación con sus homólogos de Rusia, Vladimir Putin, a veces oigo Putin, y de Ucrania. Dice, esto me parece raro. El presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador declaró, a diferencia de las acciones adoptadas por otros líderes mundiales. Mexican president declared that unlike actions adopted by other world leaders, México no impondrá sanciones de ningún tipo a Rusia. Mexico will not impose any sanctions whatsoever, de ningún tipo, none at all, on Russia, en razón de la invasión de su ejército perpetró en Ucrania. Because la razón, the reason, el motivo, the reason, porque queremos mantener buenas relaciones con todos los gobiernos del mundo y queremos estar en condiciones de poder hablar con las partes en conflicto. We want to be able to talk to each side of the conflict. ¡Ah!
Pero invitó los que necesitan refugio a venir a México.
Ay, a ver, no sé, pero muy interesante, muy interesante. Quizás ustedes están de acuerdo, quizás ustedes no están de acuerdo, pero me parece muy, muy curioso que AMLO cree que puede hablar con Putin y puedo hablar con Zelensky. Sí, con los dos. No, ellos no quieren hablar con él. No creo que ellos quieran hablar con AMLO de ese. Con China, quizás. Con Chino, puede ser. Con AMLO.
En casi todos casos es porque el dinero, o en este caso es quizás petróleo.
Petróleo, sí.
Me imagino, yo creo, es solamente mi opinión, que AMLO no quiere ofender a nadie. No quiero tomar, sí, una posición que posiblemente pudiera ofender a Putin ni pudiera ofender a Ucrania.
Pero para hacer nada es un ofenso en sí, en itself.
Aún
Sí.
es lo peor. Bueno, para mí es la peor decisión es hacer nada. Pero, ok, no es mi país. Entonces, AMLO no le importa lo que creo yo. No, claro que no. A él no le importa. Claro, pero así es. Y es interesante leer. Y es un artículo breve. Pues sí, bastante breve. ¿Ok? ¿Vale? Bien.
Bien.
Un video de gramática, un artículo y pueden escuchar. You can listen to the audio part of the article. Y el video de Tianguis y la semana que viene otra. ¿Sí? ¿Bien?
Bien.
Excelente. Eso es todo para hoy. Fantástico.